It's a wild and leaky day in the world of Magic the Gathering. We have been given more Modern Horizons 3 leaks showcasing that Wizards is definitely targeting the reserved list with some crazy energy-based cards. And on top of that, they have given us some actual spoilers that have incredible flavor.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another fun installment of Mega Magic News. Today, we're going to be looking at a ton of Modern Horizons 3 spoilers. And like I said, Wizards of the Coast definitely has their eye on the reserved list and making a number of tweaks to cards from it. That tradition has continued in this video. Now, I want to let you know tonight I'm going to be doing something real fun. I have a booster pack of an incredibly old set called Stronghold. A bunch of you have probably never really heard of it because you started playing Magic in more recent years. But I'm going to open this pack up in a live stream on my other channel tonight. You're welcome to come by and check it out. And if you like going through card by card, talking about the flavor, the ability, all that stuff, you've been enjoying these spoiler videos, you will absolutely love my card opening videos because we talk about every individual card. And if you want a taste of what it's like before we do this booster pack, I opened up a pack from the old school Urza's block within the last few days, and that video is already up over on my Hatcher channel, so you can check that out to get excited about the live stream tonight. But that out of the way, let's look at some Magic cards right now. The first card we're starting out with is Wheel of Potential, and this is Wizards once again making an energy-based version of a reserved list card. In this case, Wheel of Fortune. So it's got the same casting cost as Wheel of Fortune, 1 red and 2, but it functions very differently. So it starts out by giving you 3 energy counters, and then you can spend X energy, any amount you want to. Each player can then exile their hand and draw X cards. If X is 7 or more, you may play cards you own exiled this way until the end of your next turn. This is a very potent card, but it does function differently than Wheel of Fortune. First of all, in the most obvious way, that it's not just set to 7 cards, because Wheel of Fortune is 1 red and 2, everybody discards their hand and draws a brand new hand of 7 cards. And that 7 card aspect is reflected in the part of the text that says if X is 7 or more, you can play cards you own exiled this way until the end of your next turn. So that's a nice nod to the original Wheel of Fortune. But on the downside, your opponents don't actually have to go for this. They can choose to keep their hand and not get a new hand, right? So it is in some ways less powerful than Wheel of Fortune, but in other ways, it's actually more powerful than Wheel of Fortune because if you pay the amount of energy that hits that 7 or more category, well, all of a sudden your hand is exiled, but guess what? It's accessible until the end of your next turn. So you have all the cards you've just drawn off of the wheel, plus the hand that you got rid of, which is not too shabby at all. Gut feeling, I mean, this isn't as powerful as Wheel of Fortune, right? 3 mana to just get a new hand is pretty wild. If you want to get 7 cards with this, you're going to have built up 4 energy in advance, right? So, I mean, on the other hand, you can just use this as an energy generating card in a pinch. Let's say you go, I don't actually really want to change my hand and get rid of it or draw these new cards. I just want to spend this to grab 3 energy. You can technically do that. Now, it's not the best use of the card, but you can do it. The flavor text says, the wheel only has 1 sure output, chaos, which is fun flavor text. And I like the fact that it deals with energy counters and it's called the Wheel of Potential because it's the wheel of potential energy. And that's some fun wordplay. Also, the artwork is a nod to the original Wheel of Fortune, where you have a cloaked figure and a wooden wheel, and they're spinning it with these different icons indicating what your future is. In this case, you have a bunch of different items that are hovering above the board that are all connected by this crackling energy. It is a pretty intense piece of artwork, and I very much enjoy that gigantic fang or molar. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a claw or the wicked barbed part of a tooth underneath that goes in the mouth. Either way, that is the most interesting element that's showed here. You've got a busted up crown, kind of a shattered orb. I'm not sure exactly what this art was originally intended for, but it really does fit the idea of a new version of Wheel of Fortune. And you can see that Wizards of the Coast very much wishes to continue messing about with reserve list cards without actually stepping on the toes of the actual reserve list. When it comes to doing that, Magic 30 clearly taught them a valuable lesson. Let's move on to the next card. We've got Corrupted Shapeshifter. Now you're going to notice, wait a minute, this is in really good resolution. What's going on here? Well, we've got a batch of spoilers, actual official spoilers, mixed in with the leaks. Wizards of the Coast has re-released the old Eldrazi stories from a decade ago. Roughly 10 years ago, they put out a number of stories about the Eldrazi. They have re-released them on the main website, but they have included brand new spoilers from Modern Horizons. So the first one we have to look at is Corrupted Shapeshifter, and this card is really fun. 1 blue and 3 for an Eldrazi Shapeshifter. It's got Devoid, so it technically counts as having no color. Now you'll notice its power and toughness are star, and that's because as it enters the battlefield, you get to choose whether it's a 3/3 creature with flying, a 2/5 creature with vigilance, or a 0/12 creature with Defender. Now, if you aren't from the earliest days of Magic, you might not know what Primal Clay is, but this is a nod to Primal Clay, which was a 4 casting cost artifact creature that you could put out as a 2/2 flyer, a 3/3 regular creature, or a 1/6 wall, which is basically a creature that has Defender by today's standards. So this is the same sort of choose 3. We've seen one other nod to the card back in the day with Primal Plasma as well from Future Sight, which was a blue costed version of that, but Primal Clay is the one that everybody knows. Now this is a souped up Primal Clay because it can be a 3/3 flyer or a 2/5 instead of a 3/3, and the biggest version of it doesn't have any power. It's not a 1/6, but it's a 0/12, and 12 toughness is absolutely insane. Arcades players who care about creatures with big toughness and Defender are drooling over this. On top of it being a fun nod to Primal Clay, the flavor level on this card is through the roof. The flavor text says within its body, 3 lineages ward for supremacy. And if you take a look at the body, you can see that that's what's going on. You can see elements of all 3 of the different Eldrazi Titans represented in different parts of the body. You've got the bony rib cage, the quadruple arms, you've got the big plates hovering around, and then you've also got the tentacles. So you're getting all 3 of them represented in an interesting way. And on top of that, you have the insane flavor of this is a shapeshifter. This is something that's normally used to changing its body around, but it's being forcibly changed by all 3 Eldrazi at one time. So it's in exactly the wrong position to be within the different Eldrazi's spheres of influence. And so all 3 are warring within it. And maybe that's partially down to its shapeshifter nature. Maybe because shapeshifters don't really have a true form they spend all their time in, it's easier for the effect of the Eldrazi to warp their body. And as an awesome added touch, I like the fact that it has a human head that's screaming. I picture it almost as like an amorphous blob changeling kind of being, but as its body is being racked by all these changes, it forms its head into a human head to scream in pain and yell for help. Like, this is epic level flavor. Moving on, we've got Wumpus Aberration, another fun flavor. 1 green and 3 for a 6/6. It has Devoid, so it doesn't count as being a green card. When you cast this spell, If a colorless wasn't spent to cast it, target opponent may put a creature card from their hand onto the battlefield, and it has trample. So this is a nod to Hunted Wumpus. Back in the day, big creatures had huge drawbacks. There was crazy powerful spells, but the creatures themselves were weak. So Hunted Wumpus was 1 green and 3 for a 6/6, but when it came into play, your opponent got to put a creature straight into play for free. Now, this lets you control that aspect of it. As long as you spend a colorless mana, they don't have that ability. They don't get to put a creature out. But the flavor on this is awesome. It says in the flavor text, all who behold its twisted form are consumed by a single-minded obsession. Destroy it. It's just so unsightly. It's such an awful abomination that you have the overwhelming urge to wipe it from existence. And that is a fantastic way to illustrate the putting a creature out for free. You literally don't have to pay the mana because this thing is such an abomination that the creature basically materializes out of its own free will to say, I'm going to slay that beast. And it is really horrific what's going on here to the beast itself. You can see that Emrakul's influence is causing all of these horrific tentacles to just burst forth from its body. This beast might actually be welcoming of its own death. Please destroy me. This is super level flavor. After that, we've got Writhing Chrysalis. 1 green, 1 red, and 2 for a 2/3. Again, it has Devoid. When you cast this spell, create 2 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens that can be sacked to add a colorless. It has Reach, and whenever you sacrifice another Eldrazi, put a +1/+1 counter on Writhing Chrysalis. So chrysalises are like they're basically like what butterflies have, right? They create that cocoon around themselves and then they change inside of it and burst forth. So this is the same kind of thing. It's just a weird little gormpy mushroom thing that's got a little mouth that it can bite at you with, but it's growing all these different Eldrazi arms as it absorbs the essence of, I guess, lesser and greater Eldrazi, because it doesn't matter. I mean, most of the time when you sacrifice Eldrazi, it's going to be spawn tokens and scion tokens. You're unlikely to sacrifice gigantic Eldrazi because they don't have built-in sacrifice effects and you're going to want them on the board. But mainly the concept is this feeds on the essence of lesser Eldrazi, draws it into its own cocoon, and uses that to birth something horrific and monstrous with endless arms. That has some really epic Eldrazi flavor. And notice the Hedrons that are floating around in the background. We have some really cool Hedron action going on these cards. After that, speaking of cool Hedron action, the concept behind this card is amazing. This is Kozilek's Unsealing. 1 blue and 2 for a Devoid enchantment that says whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4, 5, or 6, create 2 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens that you can sacrifice for a colorless. And whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, draw 3 cards. It slaps an Ancestral Recall on to every gigantic Eldrazi you cast. Remember the Null Drifter we saw before that you could evoke out? Well, its casting cost is still 7. You'd get to draw 3 cards. Are you playing Affinity with Mere Enforcers and that dude we saw from the last video? Oh, guess what? Every time you cast one of those, draw 3 cards. This feels bonkers to me. I'm genuinely surprised it's not a rare card. This will absolutely go into my cube because you don't have to use this with Eldrazi creatures at all. And when you cast big creatures, it's just gonna fuel your hand. Like, it feels epic. And from a flavor perspective, what's going on here is really cool. You have a Hedron that's been corrupted by Eldrazi presence, which shouldn't really be possible because the Hedrons were created as a prison network that was meant to seal the Eldrazi to Zendikar. Basically, the Eldrazi are these gigantic otherworldly beings that can't actually fit inside a plane. Only the smallest bit of their essence can enter the world. Any more would tear reality completely asunder and destroy the plane entirely. So what happened was a portion of their essence was trapped on Zendikar, which functionally put the 3 Eldrazi Titans to sleep. So these Hedrons were meant to keep them locked in slumber. And we've actually had a previous unsealing card of a Hedron being opened by Sarkhan, but it was being opened normally the way it's supposed to, where the top comes off, it splits at the middle, right? This is completely different. This Hedron has been changed into that bismuth stuff that Kozilek is all about, and it's being torn in half, right? It's absolutely insane. The artwork is epic. The big towering Eldrazi being as the Hedron's being cracked open. This flavor is next level. I really, really like this card. After that, we've got a reprint of Oblivion Sower. 6 casting cost, 5/8 Eldrazi. When you cast a spell, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of their library. Then you may put any number of land cards that player owns from exile onto the battlefield under your control. The flavor text says, the Eldrazi hunger without limit and consume without pause. It's crazy to think that these Eldrazi are like the equivalent of a skin cell off of the Eldrazi Titans. Like, this is a 5/8. It's bigger than most things that exist, but it's nothing compared to the Titans. And it shows up and consumes the lands from your mind, essentially, and turns them to the Eldrazi's purposes. Oh, do you have links to these different lands across the multiverse ripped out of your mind and now being used to further the Eldrazi's invasion? Like, oh, it's so epic. It's just such an epic concept. After that, we've got a common called Energetic Splendor. 1 white and 2 for an enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each energy counter you have. It has Umbra armor, which used to be known as Totem armor. It says if enchanted creature would be destroyed, instead remove all damage from it and destroy this aura. So it works as a protective sort of setup. And then the flavor text says, nothing shines brighter than, I'm going to say, immense lightning. That's my guess. So when you look at this card, it's a little bit weird because it doesn't create energy itself, right? So if you have no other energy, this card will literally give no benefit aside from the Umbra armor, which will protect the guy. But we've seen a bunch of cards that make it easy to get energy, so it feels like this card could be a runaway powerhouse. And we did just notice that with the recent banning, they banned all that glitters, right? They banned that from Pauper. And there was a statement made saying there is a particular card from Modern Horizons 3 that might need to be banned in Pauper because it's going to be too strong. And it's entirely possible that this might be that card because it has a similar feel to All That Glitters in that it can be a gigantic creature boosting enchantment. It remains to be seen whether this is that enchantment or not, but I mean the artwork is a lot of fun. Buddy's just blasting out crazy lightning. I love it. Energetic Splendor. He's just got this presence, this big medallion going. Ah! He likes role-playing Highlander action, right? That's pretty dope. After that, we've got some double-sided cards to talk about. So you'll notice it has the little arrow up here in the corner letting you know this is a flip-sider. And all the flip-siders we're going to look at have lands on one side and something more useful on the other side. So this is Boggart Trawler. This is from Lorwyn. 1 black and 2. When he enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. So it's a living Bojuka Bog, right? Flavor text says, look what I found. And it's only been dead a week. It's like, all right, I found our meal. You know what's weird is the placement of the kind of weird matted horns on this guy's head, plus the little bit of rock outcropping that's behind him, actually made me think this was a cowboy hat at first. And I'm like, is this guy LARPing from Thunder Junction? But either way, I like the fact that the Boggart Trawler shows up, your opponent loses his graveyard, because this guy just steals everything from it. He just runs over and is like, yoink! The goblins from Lorwyn are a lot of fun because they're not as malicious as regular goblins. They're like the I'm gonna steal a pie off of your windowsill style goblins. When it flips over from the light side of Lordwyn, when it flips over to Shadowmoor, they become more dark and dangerous. But in Lorwyn, they're more happy-go-lucky little goof bags, right? And so I don't know. I think he's a lot of fun. He's got a big fat goofy belly from all of the stuff he's been eating from your opponent's graveyard. It's good times. It's like, hey, he stole the corpse of my dragon. The goblin ate my dragon. All right. So this is the land side. Boggart Bog, When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tap. Add a black mana. So nothing really to write home about, but it's cool that like you can see that it's supposed to be like the same place that he's wandering through. I do like that connection. After that, we've got Sink into Stupor. Who doesn't like to do that at the end of a long day, am I right? 2 blue and 1 for an instant. Return target spell or non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. This is an interesting way to deal with uncounterable spells. If somebody plays something that can't be countered, you still can return it to their hand, which isn't countering it. They can still recast it if they have the mana or wait till another turn, but it can work as a short-term solution to problems. And I mean, it's really sweet tacked onto a bounce spell. Bounce spells normally cost like a blue and 1 to return non-land, a non-land permanent, right? Maybe they'll have something extra tacked on like Surveil 1 or something like that if you have particular conditions met. But ultimately, 1 blue and 1 is normally what it costs to bounce a non-land permanent. And for 1 blue more, you now have the ability to return target spell to its owner's hand, which can actually even be used on your own spells. If you go to play a spell and then your opponent does something that makes the target not, like you can't hit it anymore. I sacked my guy, your spell's going to be countered, whatever it is, you can stop that by bouncing the spell back to your hand. It has versatility. The flavor text says, the kami help travelers find profound relief by freeing them from their mortal concerns. That's interesting. So I guess this is supposed to be the kami of Kamigawa unmaking an Eldrazi or delaying them for a moment. The kami are interesting because they tread across the realm of reality and unreality in the world of Kamigawa specifically. Kamigawa has a spirit world that's overlaid over the regular world that normally they're separated, but the Phyrexian War plus some other events thinned the veil to the point where it's much easier to cross over back and forth, which I assume makes it easier for the kami to push things out of existence as well. The other side of it is Soporific Springs, I should say. It has the same kind of thing. Pay 3 life, or if you don't, it comes in play tapped, taps for a blue. And it says, desperate travelers journey from across Kamigawa, drawn by rumors of relief from all their troubles. Imagine that. You hear of this spring. It's not a spring of youth. It's not a spring of immortality. It's a spring of relief, where it's going to remove your problems. But how it removes your problems is by removing you from existence. Oh, it's crazy. I really enjoy the artwork depicting the same location with something happening in it. That's cool. So the third and final of the land/double-side cards we're going to look at is Waterlogged Teachings. And this is a hybrid black and blue and 3 mana for an instant that says search your library for an instant or a card with flash, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. I do like that this is an instant that gets things that can be done at instant speed because you can surprise your opponent. You can wait until the last minute, surprise your opponent during their turn with the right answer to whatever they have going on if you have a ton of mana. And if you don't, right before your turn, at the end of their turn, you can be like, bam, I'm going to search up what I need. The flavor text says, the long dead librarians are still on hand to recommend selected titles. Imagine how insane that would be. You're in a library and a dead hand just jams out. Like, is there actually a body attached to that? Is that a bookcase that's up against a wall and this like undead hand, or just long dead, it's a spiritual hand, is just reaching through the wall, pushing this book out to you? I love the book too. It's got the runes glowing on the front, but you can see it's also like beat up and damaged. Like, how ancient is this? This is flavorful. On the other side of it, we've got Inundated Archives. So this is the library itself, right? And it does look like the books are all along the wall. So there isn't a body behind that. It's just it's an immaterial hand coming out. So this one doesn't let you have it come into play untapped. You can't pay life, but it taps for 2 different colors, black or blue. Flavor text says, moldering tomes line rotting shelves. Generations of priceless knowledge fades from memory beneath the waves. Imagine the feeling of the dead librarians. All they can really do is hold out a book for people, but they can't materialize themselves away from the bookshelf to actually go and fetch all these books back up and save them. That would actually be a nightmarish imprisonment. That's a really cool concept, honestly, for like a D&D campaign. You could have like a Geist that's essentially been driven mad. It's a librarian who is very meticulous about their library, but now it's waterlogged and their spirit's trapped there, unable to actually fix the books or do anything about it. And so it's just gone insane and wants to destroy everybody it comes in contact with. That is very flavorful. After that, we've got Marionette Apprentice, 1 black and 1 for a 1/2 human artificer with Fabricate. So you can either have it come into play with a +1/+1 counter or make a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature. And it says, whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. The flavor text says, yes, I got its leg to twitch. Which, I mean, that part is okay. It ties into the apprentice concept where it's like, yo, you're figuring out how to make these servos. Cool, I got it to move around. On the other hand, it's like, wait a minute, your ability's tied into things going to the graveyard. Did this thing just blow up afterwards? It's like a disciple of the Vault from the old Mirrodin days, where when a card goes to the graveyard, your opponent loses a life, but it also counts creatures. But at the same time, it also does cost a black and 1. So it remains to be seen how powerful this one actually is. Are you just going to want to use Disciple of the Vault instead of it? So it's interesting, but not super exciting. Moving on, we've got Tune the Narrative, an energy generating instant for 1 blue. You get to draw a card and you get 2 energy counters. So it's only 1 blue and it replaces itself and it ups you by 2 energy. So in a blue-red build where you're trying to build up to a mega wheel or something like that, that's going to be A1. But I don't know, power level wise. The flavor text says, the Kami whisper of other worlds brimming with stories untold. It would take a lifetime to learn them, a lifetime well spent. Tamio is a really cool planeswalker conceptually who is drawn to stories specifically and actually became a planeswalker when her spark ignited from finding a book that came from another world and realizing, wait, there's realms from beyond where I am with knowledge and stories I've never heard of. And that epiphany was enough to ignite her spark and sent flinging her across the blind eternities. So she learns all these different stories from different locations, which is really fun. This artwork is like techno Kamigawa kind of swirling around her. So I'd actually like this artwork better if it just showed Tamio in front of the moon because she is one of the moon folk. So the artwork is middle of the road for me. Moving on. We've got Dog Umbra. 1 white and 1 for an enchantment that has flash. Whatever creature's enchanted by it has a different effect whether it's on your creature or on your opponent's creature. So if you put it on an opponent's creature, that creature can't attack or block. But if you put it on your creature, it gives Umbra armor. So it is underwhelming. This is a card purely for limited, right? For drafts and things like that. It's not super powerful. I do like the fact that the whole loyalty of a dog concept where you can tell them what to do, you enchant your opponent's creature with the concept, the essence of being a dog, and it makes them obedient to you so they won't get in your way. It is funny too, the idea of summoning somebody up and be like, you've summoned me to help you. Yep, be a dog. And you're like, oh, what, bro? I gotta crawl around like a dog? This is lame. This ain't good for my back, son. I'm getting old enough that when I see stuff like that, the idea of running around on all fours like Rob Schneider from The Animal just makes my back hurt. My bones hurt is what I would be yelling as I ran along as a dog. It's a fun card, but not a good card, right? And that's it. That's all the spoilers, my friends. So thanks for coming by. Like I said, tonight I'm going to be opening up this Stronghold booster. So if you want to check that out, come on over to my other channel where I'll be doing that live. And if you miss it, I'll have it uploaded afterwards. And actually, in the meantime, if you want to see an old school opening of an Urza's block booster pack, that's available on the channel over there as well. So I'll link it up here at the end of the video for you to enjoy. Big shout out to my patrons for supporting my channel. Thank you very much. And I will see you all, my friends, in the next video.